Well, that didn't switch the way I expected it to. Good morning.
Good morning. Live is hard.
Look at that. We've got Cameron, an actual Cameron.
Yes.
So, rock and roll.
Actual spiffy Cameron, in fact.
So, today we are going to be talking about the dear leader and his approach to domestic terrorism. But before we get into the story for today, well, guys, we had a good day yesterday. We had a great day yesterday. We cracked a significantly higher view count than we usually do on a video, and added about 5% to our subscriber total, which 5%, I don't care what size your channel is, 5% boost is a big jump for any YouTube channel. So, thank you so much for all of that. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Go ahead right now. Go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. I see the names in the chat. I know you guys are all subscribed. But go ahead and hit that like button and share this video so we can get some more butts in the seats while we are live. So, Cameron, you want to take us away for a minute on the... we're going to do a quick update on the situation with Ivory Hecker, who we covered yesterday, and then we'll get into the actual story.
Yeah, it's actually going to help us segue quite nicely into WTF CNN and how spooky this document is. So, basically, hey, guess what, buddy? I get to call it. I was right. She appears to have been fired. Whoops.
Yep. You beat me on that one. I still stand by the majority of my statement. While I did not expect her to be fired immediately because of certain legal protections that are extended to whistleblowers, as this story develops, I do absolutely suspect that what will happen is there will be legal ramifications. She probably has a good case for a lawsuit on her hands here. That lawsuit miit be easily beaten by the fact that she made the declaration live on their network.
Yeah, that's what they're going to say. They're going to say they terminated her because she went rogue on air.
That's going to complicate her lawsuit, but a competent lawyer can probably deal with that given the rest of the context of the whistleblower allegation. Because remember, the law is not what's written down. It's what you can prove. And what we really mean by what you can prove is it's what you can convince a judge or a jury to agree with.
But, all that aside, the big drop that came was that, yes, she's being muzzled. And, yes, I see you in the chat there. Fox News is indeed not your friend. That is correct. So what happened with Miss Ivory, long story short, is her turning point actually came with COVID-19 reporting. When the woo-woo doctor came out and
boom,
said,
we've got a flag. Flag on the video. You said the thing.
Yes. Anyhow, when what people referred to as the woo-woo doctor came out and made some statements about hydroxychloroquine and COVID and how effective it would be, and YouTube, we're not expressing an opinion there. We're just stating what happened. Okay. Well, Miss Ivory realized, golly, this doctor is based out of Houston. This is not just a national interest story. This is also a local interest story. And very quickly she was told, yeah, okay, good job, job, and all that. But stop talking about hydroxychloroquine. And it even got to the point to where she was told by her news editor to stop mentioning it on air.
Yep.
And
to stop tweeting about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That all of her social media engagement was going to have to be approved by her upline from this point forward. She was described as a failure of a reporter. Now go ahead. I'm about to toss it back over to you, buddy, because here's what's funny about that. There's another thing that she mentioned about why crypto's not reported on. Would you explain that to us, please, buddy?
Yeah, so I don't talk about crypto on the show a whole lot. I've been interested in and studying and following crypto for nearly 10 years now. I find it fascinating. And I was very late to the party to invest in any crypto. And I'm not giving legal advice. I'm not giving financial advice here. Unlike many of the guys on YouTube that talk about crypto and say, now I'm not giving advice. I actually was a bonded fiduciary as a licensed insurance agent, so I have to be extra double careful about that. So no advice. I bought some crypto. I didn't buy a whole lot of it. I'm having fun playing with it and watching it and trading it around. I used to do a lot of day trading when I was still active duty Army. I enjoyed the hell out of it. But it's fun. Now, in the top of the video from Veritas, I almost didn't watch the rest of the video because it starts off, the editor is saying, I've decided that we don't want to cover the crypto stories during I think it was the 5 to 6 hour, because the African American demographic isn't interested in that. And that was one of the things that Ivory was concerned about. And I'm willing to give her a little pushback there. Now, everything that Cameron just mentioned about the woo-woo doctor, all that is egregious, because that woman came out with, she brought receipts. These are patients with whom we've tried this drug, and it had these effects and these ramifications. And of course, from the get-go, it was known before hydrochloroquine was mentioned by the evil orange man that it's a drug that's been used for a very long time, and so we already knew what the potential side effects were, and they're minimal. But the thing about the crypto, the editor said we don't want to carry the crypto stories during the 5 to 6 block because African Americans just aren't interested in that, and that's our key demo in this area for that time space. And I'll defend her a little bit on that decision, because there's a few factors there. One, there is more news than you can cover. I don't care what outlet you are. There is more news, period, than you can cover. So necessarily you have to choose what news to cover based on some criteria. That said, one of those criteria should be what your demographic audience is interested in consuming, because you do have an audience to serve, and what you are serving that audience is not necessarily the news that they want, but news related to the topics of interest, to the things that they are interested in. Even if you want to make the argument that there are other things they should be interested in, that's not the same as what they are interested in. And at the business level, the C-suite, they have a fiduciary responsibility. If your numbers go bad enough and the board is losing money, you can be held criminally liable for mismanaging a large company. So at the C-suite level, you have a legal, moral, ethical, and fiduciary obligation to do what is in the interest of making a profit. Now, it may be reasonable to argue that should not be the case when you're talking about reporting on the news, but the fact of the matter is that it is the case legally currently. So the decision to tailor what news you intend to carry based on the interests of your target demographic, that's not an unreasonable thing to do. However, when you're talking about the woo-woo doctor and you say this is not of local interest or national interest, now you're lying. Now what you're doing is you're engaging in censorship, because that was absolutely
Orange Man bad.
Yep. That was absolutely in the interest of the public.
And if you go back and you watch the Project Veritas video, they state expressly that the reason why the story gets the reaction that it gets is because Donald Trump is such a polarizing figure. And it's like, well, okay, that's good to know. Also, can I just tell you, I smell a hint of the subtle bigotry of soft expectations coming off that story about, because I got to say, the cynic in me says it's almost like they're saying poor black folks are too dumb to understand how to invest. And gosh, if you wanted to keep poor black folks poor, maybe you don't want them to learn about investments. Just a thought, just tinfoil hat territory.
Yeah, there's an adage that rich men invest their money and spend what's left. poor men spend their money and invest what's left. And that's it's a little oversimplified, but it's not untrue.
What this has proven is the fact that the media, the Democrat Party, and as we stated yesterday, I don't think there's really a clear line of demarcation between the two. But they set the agenda, they set the narrative. They have a nice word for it. They refer to it as framing. It's just beautiful, isn't it? But when they frame stories, they frame the narrative, and Ivory has proven that just by not allowing the information about this doctor to come out. You have any number of deaths could be attributed to the media's malfeasance, for example. Now, we're not making opinions about any of this, YouTube. I'm just saying there's a possibility, okay? So, if you go over to CNN's homepage right now, how are they framing things? Well, I spent the morning reading over CNN's homepage, and they are currently framing Joe Biden as basically a titan at the G7 summit, and he's going to have his big meeting with Putin today. Hey, let me let you guys in on a little secret, okay? That there ain't going to be live cameras in the room with Putin. It's not going to happen. Joe Biden's having some problems. He's definitely had a few, let's call them, senior moments at the current G7 summit. Not a whole lot of that being reported at CNN. No. Instead, what's all over CNN is Joe Biden. He's basically fixing all of the things that the evil orange man did, and they're really gearing him up for his meeting with Putin, and he's going to be tough on Putin, and he's just going to be the man. And they're setting all that up.
Yeah, we're not going to see any of that.
Yeah, they're setting all that up. Steve says wandering around on stage was a nice touch. Yeah, I know what you mean, buddy. I know what you mean. It's, good Lord. We are rapidly approaching the point where his oncoming in dementia, well, actually his progressive dementia is going to be impossible to hide.
Well, I mean, Putin whooped Biden's ass as soon as Putin got off his own plane at the summit and managed to get down the stairs without tripping and falling on his face.
I know. But anyhow, they got to frame Joe as a strong, competent leader that's actually got American interests at heart, that knows how to play nice, because shit like, for example, the whole thing with David Chipman and the proposed rule change over at the ATF that's going to retroactively make millions of guns illegal, and which will make you a felon for not registering, paying the tax. We don't know exactly how the rule will shake out. They'll either ban the guns outright or they'll put some kind of tax on top of them. Either way, it's a backdoor to a gun registry, a whole bunch of shit that is incredibly unconstitutional. But that has to look reasonable. That has to look like something that's acceptable. And it's because it comes from our leaders. And so the most recent thing to come from our leaders, and I read the memo that was
hang on, Steve. Putin on a horse. Putin on a Ritz.
Anyhow, but no, the other thing that's coming out is that all of this is important, why the framing is important, is this document. Because this document, if you go through, and Chris and I are actually going to do a deep dive on the longer document, the one that's like 30-something pages. But we've read the memo that summarizes the document, and it's terrifying. It makes it very, very clear that guys like Chris and I, we're not exactly terrorists, but we're on the bubble. We're terrorism adjacent, for damn sure.
Now, clarification. Cameron is not making the claim that this is true. Cameron is making the claim that this is what is asserted by the government.
Yes, that this is what the government is asserting. They're deliberately... okay, so the left has said for a while that white supremacy is like the domestic terror threat. Though if you actually got every white supremacist in the country together, you'd probably have a hard time, filling up the filling up, 1/4 of Piedmont Park. Okay, there's that few of them, but whatever. Well, they've added this thing in this memo that also includes people that are anti-government. And I guarantee you, somebody like me who would kind of consider himself a conservatarian minarchist, somewhere in that vein, they're going to call me anti-government. And they're going to deliberately conflate me with the white supremacist. And it's going to be okay to censor my speech. And it's going to be okay for me to be verboten on social media. And if I fight back in any way, I'm going to be immediately labeled a terrorist. And if this sounds like I'm making a bunch of leaps, no, I don't think so. Not at all. Because we've got the media, remember, out there hard at work. We got to make Uncle Joe look good. That's just Uncle Joe. That's Grandpa Joe. Ignore the fact that he sniffs kids and forgets his own name. Ignore all that. He's awesome. He's amazing. And then when he finally is 25th out or has to resign or whatever, well, we already know that Kamala's willing to illegally keep people in jail longer than necessary so that she can use them for slave labor. You think it would be that big of a stretch for a lady like her to say guys like Chris and I are part of the problem?
And let's not forget, I just replied to Biden's tweet here. So here's the tweet. I just replied to the tweet. It's funny how all them BLM riots somehow don't qualify as domestic terrorism under the Biden administration. So Biden tweeted yesterday, "Domestic terrorism is a stain on the soul of our nation and a threat to our democracy." I agree. I actually agree with that statement. We need to confront its rise head on. Again, I agree. That's why my administration is releasing the first ever national strategy for countering domestic terrorism. So, this is the actual document. It's 34 pages long. We're just going to look at the fact sheet, though. The thing that he actually tweeted is the fact sheet, which is basically a summary of the thing.
It even has 5 pillars. It sounds so
Is it 5? I thought it was 4. I just read it.
No, I just had a Joe Biden moment. I don't remember. Come on, man.
Yeah, it's 4. It's 4 pillars.
No, but you didn't introduce the South African president.
You're right. I did not. So, yeah, National Strategy for Countering Domestic Terrorism. Y'all remember the Patriot Act? Possibly the least patriotic thing that was ever done by a U.S. administration. Yeah, that. And let me just remind you, before we get into this any further, the Biden administration is all the evidence you need. That you don't need to take Democrat voters seriously ever again. It's not just that their politicians are exceedingly and unforgivably corrupt. Their voters are either against the nation or too stupid to be allowed to vote.
Or they're deliberately kept ignorant by, CNN.
Same thing. So,
but I repeat myself.
They say in okay, you got your little history piece here. Domestic terrorism is not a new threat in the United States, yet it is a threat Americans have endured too often in recent years. I agree. We saw a great deal of domestic terrorism over the last 18 months. In fact, we've seen a great deal of domestic terrorism over the course of the entire Trump administration. Remember the Battle of Berkeley? Remember the burning of Berkeley? Remember every time a conservative speaker went to speak at a college to hired by a Young Republicans organization or Turning Point or one of those, you'd have your Ben Shapiro, Milo Yiannopoulos, Michael Knowles. They'd go on invite to speak in a space that was paid for by the audience that wanted to hear the speakers. and Democrat voters would show up and set the buildings on fire, throwing firebombs at the speakers, at their audiences, at the police. They would assault police officers. They would go in while speeches were ongoing and assault the speakers.
Oh, hell, man. Just the whole Chaz Chop thing. Like, do you want to talk about an actual armed insurrection? Because what happened on January 6th, and by the way, I'll eat that one. It looks like my opinion about what happened on the 6th is wronger and wronger and wronger. In fact, the more they squeal about, oh my God, we can't ever let January 6th happen again, and you find out that cops were like letting little old ladies into the building, it's like, I'm even still willing to say they shouldn't have gone inside, but this whole, they breached the barricades and all that, and they won't release the name of the cop who shot Ashley Babbitt.
Who murdered Ashley Babbitt?
Oh, that's right. But thank you for correcting me. For because I mean, if they murdered George Floyd, then Ashley Babbitt was certainly fucking murdered. Like, there's no, if that's the standard.
Yeah, and I encourage you to go and watch the footage of it. I mean, it's hard to watch. It's a young lady being murdered. But go back and watch that footage, because the claim is that she was trying to breach the... No, she was standing up. She was standing up on somebody's shoulders or something. She just happened to be the tallest head in that crowd. And so the officer that murdered her recklessly fired his weapon at a crowd behind which were standing other police officers with zero reasonable justification to pull that trigger. The fact that your current administration is actively interested in exterminating white people is the only reason that officer has not been outed, has not had his name smeared across every newspaper.
Yeah, but to make the point, we've had actual instances of terrorism. They've just all been related to Antifa or BLM or to leftist organizations. Again, like the whole thing with the Chaz Chop, that is what an armed insurrection is. Like, literally, they temporarily seceded from the country. And the last time somebody seceded from the country, they went down in the history books as the bad guys. You know, we all remember this, right? Right? So there's all these actual terrorists we could go after. Oh, I love Anarchy's comment. Anarchy says the only domestic terrorists we have in this country are people calling themselves government officials. Bravo. That might be the top comment. But
yeah, let me just real quick. To shore up this point about who the actual terrorists are, and the clear fact that what you have right now is a media apparatus, which is essentially the Democrat Party itself, actively spreading misinformation and crafting a narrative for the explicit purpose of causing harm to an identifiable group of people. Okay, so let's see. We got some Proud Boys descend into dysfunction. Russia summit begins with Biden. Dangerous COVID-19 variant are rapidly increasing in U.S. Moderates win the day in close vote over Southern Baptist presidency. Biden can't let Putin get away with this. You know what I don't see here? You know what I don't see? On CNN's main page, who, by the way, is headquartered in Georgia, in Atlanta, Georgia. Let's see. I don't see anything about this black suspect accused of 2-day-long shooting spree was targeting white males, according to police, published yesterday. Justin Tyron Roberts, a 39-year-old black man, was targeting white males in his 2-day-long shooting spree that spanned 2 states, according to police.
Hey,
Detective Brandon Lockhart testified on Monday that Roberts told the police that white men had picked on him and wronged him for all his life, according to a report from the Columbus Ledger-Inquirer. Let me ask you a question. What do you think would be the only story if this were a white man who had gone hunting black men? Okay, think back to the McMichael situation. There is a good argument to be made that was a legitimate and reasonable, lawful citizen's arrest, which went terribly wrong when Ahmaud Arbery, suicided himself by hillbilly. But that was a situation where you had a black man with a long criminal history engaged in an activity which he had repeatedly used in the past to commit grand larceny, burglary, felony trespass, and multiple other crimes. Right? You had a suspect with a long history who got entangled with a couple of off-duty law enforcement officials. Right? Both the McMichaels, the father and the son, both of the McMichaels were involved in law enforcement. One was a retired cop. The other was he wasn't a badged officer. He was some kind of law enforcement. Both had history with the guy. Both knew his record. And it's pretty clear that Arbery assaulted Travis McMichael and grabbed the gun, at which point Arbery became an armed assailant. And somebody was going to get shot in that situation. It turned out it was the bad guy, and that's all well and good. But what did every headline say? That he was hunted, as if for sport, by white supremacists. This, by his own words, is a black supremacist who hunted white men. And he shot several white men, hunted them. And, according to this, there were 5 shootings took place during 3 separate assaults in Columbus, Georgia, and Phoenix City, Alabama. Okay, this guy went hunting white men. Now, I'm not saying that white men should get away with hunting black men, but I am saying that black men should not get away with hunting white men, especially not by dint of the color of any of their skin.
Oh, God, but guys like Chris and I, we're the terrorists. That's... I mean, thank you, Ivory, for further proving the point, and I really hope that your example encourages other people from Fox to come out, because honestly, it's a damn shame what happened over there, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it.
And we're coming up on our time, so let's get into that a little bit. You and I were talking about the chilling effect versus the warming effect, I guess. You mentioned yesterday when we were talking about this kind of pregame in the show prep, before we even knew that we were going to be getting into this white supremacy. You look back at the Me Too movement, and like I've said many times on here, the Me Too movement, that was whores that were regretting their selling choices. And really, it wasn't even that. They just decided that they wanted to hurt somebody, and they picked a target and they attacked him. But one of the things tactically that happened with the Me Too movement is somebody spoke out, and then somebody else was emboldened to do likewise. I fear that may not be the case here, but I can hope that Ivory speaking out will embolden other reporters. The concern there, the thing that I fear will hinder that, is basically the majority of the reporters are on board for this crap. At least the journalists that we get to interact with, that we actually see on television, that we see having their own shows, the names by a wide margin, they support this censorship, they support this indoctrination, this whole corrupted monstrosity.
Oh, biscuits and gravy. I'm sorry, keep going. I don't mean to derail you. It was just a fantastic comment. I don't normally get to read them.
So, we can hope that there's a warming effect, that Ivory Hecker coming forward and saying, hey, the networks are doing something wrong. I hope that helps. I hope it gets people's attention. I hope that she's not the last reporter to come out and say, hey, I wrote stories that were good. Because, you look at Project Veritas and the stories that they've broken. Like, they made their name, they made their bones originally on the Acorn scandal. And then it was the Planned Parenthood, right?
That's the big one.
That was huge. Well, the Acorn scandal was a big damn deal, but Planned Parenthood, they got they got Planned Parenthood upper management, C-suite folk on tape, actively not just saying that we engage in selling body parts, the body parts, the organs of aborted fetuses, but actually got them on camera negotiating for it and bragging about being able to buy a Lambo after selling a baby's heart. It's terrifying and disgusting.
I don't remember that. But
oh yeah.
I remember.
Oh yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, I get to get. Maybe it wasn't a Lambo, but it was. I get to get that new car. She was talking about like $100,000 car or more. But yeah, big deal. And of course they caught several people at CNN, including what's his name, Van Jones, actually saying on hidden camera, "Oh yeah, the whole Russia thing, that's total nothing burger, but it's good for ratings."
Good
and
for
that
clicks.
was, yeah, I mean that was like 2 years before the Mueller report came out and confirmed that it was in fact a big nothing burger. That's that we need to do a retrospective on that whole thing, because the real truth of the matter there is the Russia hoax was such a nothing burger, and now we know it was so obviously fabricated. There needs to be another investigation. There need to be government officials who are stripped of their positions and incarcerated for the remainder of their lives, if not executed for treason, over what happened there. Because if you remember correctly, the Mueller probe began as a counterintelligence probe, precisely because even though the media narrative was a criminal allegation, the allegation they made, they kept saying collusion, because there is no crime called collusion. They were very careful not to use the correct term, which would have been conspiracy. Right? If they were going to actually allege a crime in that case, it would have been conspiracy to defraud, right? Or conspiracy to commit X crime. But they kept using the word collusion, because if you accuse somebody of doing something and the thing you accuse them of is an actual crime, especially if you put it in print where it's libel, then you've opened yourself up to other criminal allegations. But if you say somebody did a thing just generally, and that thing doesn't happen to be a crime, then you've hedged your bets. That's why the word collusion came up. Basically, somebody sat down and said, the lawyer sat down and said, well, we want to accuse him of a conspiracy, which we know he didn't do, but we don't want to get in trouble when we get caught. So let me just bust out my thesaurus and see what other word we can use so that we can lie real careful about it.
And don't worry, the media will help, because the media is the Democrat Party. Take that shit to the bank. Thank you, Rush Limbaugh. God bless your soul.
Indeed. And Planned Parenthood is just one of their many very effective and dangerous money laundering campaigns. So,
and it's racist as shit. Let's not forget.
Yeah.
Anyhow, but we have busted our time there, brother.
It's only by about 5 minutes. We're doing okay. But you're correct. That's the end of the show. Thanks, guys, for watching. Make sure you share and subscribe and hit that thumbs up or like or whatever platform you're watching on. And keep an eyeball out, because as soon as we can go live on Odyssey or BitChute or any of those, we will be doing exclusive live shows on those platforms where we can talk more openly about certain topics, and we can get into some of the other interesting information.
Oh, you mean like how Fulton County's missing a few hundred documents that I won't name?
Yeah, I don't know nothing about that.
Probably good.
I mean, I don't know nothing about that other than the several meetings that I went to over the course of the last 6 months where party officials and government officials addressed that topic explicitly, in great detail, and brought receipts and discussed the evidence that's available. Videos which I've published on other platforms and cannot discuss here. But no, I don't know nothing. Y'all be safe out there, guys, and we will see you tomorrow.